G'day, I'm David Richards.
And I'm Paul Luckett. What happens when one of the world's oldest independent ad tech companies starts to outpace the giants? Not with scale, but with purpose, engineering, and transparency. For more than 20 years, Adform has built a platform designed for the future. A full-stack, privacy-forward, omnichannel system trusted across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the fast-growing Asia-Pacific region. With innovations in identity, sustainability, and attention, the company has earned global recognition as one of the most advanced independent advertising platforms operating today. And at the center of that growth is today's guest.
And Bartosz Malinowski leads Adform's expansion across Central and Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific, bringing together technology, culture, and commercial strategy across some of the world's most diverse markets. His career spans IBM, Adobe, and now more than a decade inside Adform, where he's helped steer the company through several industry transformations. So here's the question. What makes Adform so unique in an ad tech market full of vendors offering similar products and solutions? Let's find out. Bartosz, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, David. Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great
I'm
to
really
have you on,
good,
mate.
and it's super nice actually to be talking to you guys, across the world because you're sitting way over across the globe.
Yeah, you're
From
in
where
you're
I'm
in
sitting.
Warsaw, Poland, coming today.
I
How's
am in Warsaw, Poland. That's my hometown.
Yep.
But obviously because of my role, I do travel extensively as well.
Yeah, I'd have to say it was great meeting you in person. I think it was a few months ago, if I'm right, here in Sydney.
Yep,
Yeah,
correct. I
that's
think it
great.
was June.
Yeah. Hey, just quickly.
So it was middle of your winter.
So tell me, what's happening in Poland? How's the weather?
Well, it sucks right now.
Okay.
We should be having a wonderful wet winter, but because of the climate change, it's now wet and miserable, and it's getting dark very early during the day. So today, when I woke up to come to connect with you guys, it was still dark,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure that when I leave the office, it's going to be dark
Yeah.
again.
I have to admit I haven't been to Poland, but I'd love to go. Just before we started the show, I was talking to you and you were saying, what do you get, like 19 hours of daylight during summer? Was that right?
Yeah, in summer it's usually quite light,
That's
and we have a
amazing.
lot of daylight, and
Yeah.
it's really wonderful. By the way,
I
I
think
do recommend coming
I
in
think I'd be
summer.
up
I
all
don't
night.
recommend coming in winter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, you would be. Oh, with the parties that we have here,
Yeah.
you would be.
Would be fun. Now, Bartosz, before we dive into Adform and the global ad tech landscape, I'd love to start with your origin story. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself and your career leading into working at Adform?
Sure. I'd love to. So the funny story about me is that I'm a child of an engineer and a professional manager. So my parents actually both graduated from both of those directions, but they both ended up in business. And then I actually went to the University of Technology in Warsaw. So I'm engineer at heart. But I also did graduate the Warsaw School of Economics. And then I ended up in IBM as my first job, first gig back in early 2000s, being basically a guy trying to deliver a piece of software for one of the largest, if not the largest currently, insurance company in Eastern Europe. And I kind of got to see that I do prefer working with the clients more than working with the engineers. So instead of actually writing code, I was kind of synchronizing the team on how to do the job and basically selling the software on their behalf to the client, and that worked pretty well. And I got noticed from one of the managers there, and they offered me a permanent gig at
Mm.
IBM. So that's how I sort of started in tech, and really deeply in tech, to be honest, because we were delivering, enterprise scale solutions with IBM. And I was very lucky because that guy who did notice me, who was a team leader at the time, he became my mentor, and actually now we're friends.
Oh, wow.
I've been friends for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
But I did start my career as in kind of a software engineer in IBM, and then became the software architect. Then moved to sales because of that kind of connection that I have with clients and the ability to talk about technology to people who are not necessarily engineers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I basically followed my mentor and joined Adobe.
Would
Yeah.
you, Would you say, I just quickly double click on that? It's an interesting way you explain that. I find myself in a kind of similar position, I guess, where I started in technology role and worked in a tech role for many years, but I found the area of the role that, as you exactly put it, that I enjoyed the most was being on the commercial and the business side of things. I've tried to explain this to people because I think in the tech world, you've got a lot of people who get into development and engineering who kind of are solely kind of tunnel vision on that one thing. And then on the sales side, you have a similar thing, right? But then you have those rare breed of people that sit in the middle who can bridge that gap and act as that translation layer between the two things. Would you describe yourself as someone like that?
Yes, I would. And also, there's, I'd say that group in the middle, they also kind of sit on the fence because you can
Mm,
have people who are a bit more techy and they tend to become like solutions engineers, like solution architects,
mm,
guys that are very good at explaining how tech works, but are probably more on the product side. And then you've
mm,
got people who tend to move into this tech sales, tech management part of things, and they're probably much more leaning into talking to the clients about actual solutions, and then talking to the tech side. And I'm that group probably.
mm.
And I did do a gig in IBM when I was a solution architect, so I kind of moved from very techy job through this middle ground, and then to kind of sales in technology, and then to management. So
Yep.
that was my kind of
It's
path.
such an interesting market. Like Paul and I, we've worked with each other to, I think, well, going back 15 or so years now, and I feel the same. I think I have been a specialist in areas, but now had to become such a generalist to be relevant in today's world, from all the way from graphic design to sales, to video production and what we're doing now in the video podcast. It's hard. I think new people coming into or entering into this industry, that just must be looking and going, how and where do I start? Like it's just crazy. How would you? What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start in the media career, or Adform? If you want to go down that path, what would you look for someone to come into Adform?
Well, so I think there's one very particular thing about ad tech, which is a bit different to like agency work, I would say, is that when you join an ad tech company, you are being thrown into the forefront of all the changes that are happening with digital advertising internet. Like you need to deal with all the big major shifts that are happening immediately. Like there's no wait time. When Google was announcing the removal of third-party cookies many years ago, and we know that saga pretty well as well. You had to move because you knew that if you don't change your strategy and that happens, you might be kind of left out. So that's what when I speak to our employees who join the company, what they say, like there's a really fast pace, and you are at the cutting edge of what's happening with the tech. In Adform, we actually tend to have this notion of hiring people that are highly intelligent, but also, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use a bit of a swear word here on your show.
Go on, give it a go.
So I'm not sure, but we have this policy that we just say no assholes,
Yeah.
right? That we just basically there's a certain culture within the company that probably stems back from the origins of a Scandinavian company that is very flat, non-hierarchical, where we don't want to do politics inside of the company. We want to deliver solutions for the clients. So there's a certain atmosphere when you're joining Adform, where you join on month one, and then the week one you usually get contacted with by a lot of people saying, hey, let me help you out, let us get you up to speed. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting culture that we have, and that's probably the reason why I've been here for 12 years. That I kind of enjoy, and I think it helps us really deliver the right value for the clients.
Yeah.
And
Um,
interesting fact is like, sorry, just finishing with that thought, like when I speak to clients, you know, all of the technologies fail at some time, but we almost never hear that we got bad support from our clients. They're
yeah.
really happy about how we operate. So that's kind of the cultural thing that we have here.
One of the things that stood out for me when I met you, when you were here in Sydney, was with your team here in Sydney as well, was how many of them have been in the company for such a long time. What is that? a similar philosophy that you've basically hired, or that the company has basically pulled these people together, that you've got a similar philosophy that you like working? And it's Paul and I have heard this a lot from everybody. I want to say everybody that we've spoken to on the show, Luckett. Would you agree that it's all been about people first and then product second?
Yeah. So I would love to believe that's the case. Like, we are creating an environment that allows people to really have an impact. And
Yeah.
also, that was one of the key reasons for me to join Adform back in 2014. Was I felt, working for IBM, Adobe, I just felt like a little sprocket that doesn't really necessarily have an impact on what's happening, and is probably driven by the bigger cogs than really doing the business itself. At Adform, we are really trying to empower people, and especially in the markets where we're just trying to grow. When we established a few years ago, and there's a tough competition, the team is small. Those people, all of them, could be considered as entrepreneurs, really, because they get their piece of business and they're fully responsible on delivering. Yes, we do give support. We have certain guidelines on how we work, and there's always some limitations, but there is a very measurable trust toward our employees that we have within the company. That's probably one of those reasons why people really tend to stay for a longer time. And that's one of my mottos. Like, I don't hire intelligent people to tell them exactly what to do. Like, we kind of give directions, and then my role as a leader is to make sure that they have all the tools and support necessary,
Yeah.
and the guardrails, not to kind of follow the cliff, to deliver.
So how do you get in? Because we'll get into what Adform is in a moment. I want to understand a little bit more about the management strategy, because the platform itself is complicated. Not that Adform's complicated, but what you offer. No, it didn't come out right. But what you're offering is, in a world where somebody's coming into this for the first time, you've got data, you've got supply, you've got demand, and then I think you've got creative as well. But you've got to get into the product. You've got to understand all the different dynamics of how the platform operates. You're actually selling it as well. You've got to understand the company dynamics, the culture, and then you've got to understand the different cultures that you're working in different parts of the world. How do you do that?
Well, I think it's a really good point that you raised. It's a complicated tech in general, also as Adform, because our philosophy is to give full transparency to the client and full ownership of data. Our platform, it's really not the easy. I mean, you were right talking that it's not the simplest platform that there is, because we give so many options to the client. And now, knowing that, it becomes complicated, especially if you are moving from a very easy system that is not giving you that many options, not giving you that much access to data, just, let's say, Google Ads, and then you open a platform like Adform and you see all of those options that you can use. It can be a daunting experiment in a way. So we are obviously trying to simplify that, because we understand that the client need to have a tool that is easy to work with, but it also puts a lot of I want to use the pressure, but maybe that's the right word actually, on our teams to deliver the right level of education for the clients, and then the right level of support, so that the platform can be utilized to the best extent. Because what we found out, and I believe our CEO Trolls actually put it quite correctly, that we kind of built a platform by engineers, because Adform had been an engineering company at heart. So we built a platform by engineers for engineers. And now with the current shift in the workforce, and I'm pretty sure that you probably touched upon this in previous shows, with the Z generation coming, and the shorter attention span of the population, the platform needs to get easier. And I think that's the area what we're trying right now to do a lot of things with UI AI agents coming to the platform, helping to do the job much easier, but without removing the transparency and data access that you can actually have. And that's kind of the thing when you're comparing tools. Like, when you have this really complicated tools, you can do a lot of things with it, but it takes a bit of a learning curve to actually master it.
Is it with the sales approach from the team? I'm just curious, like, is being a company where you've got a whole range of different solutions. I know a lot of different vendors in market who have similar things, and some refer to it as a modular approach, right? Where you have, they might have 8 different products or 8 different modules to their product, and There's two different ways to approach that from a sales perspective. From in my experience, one is that they might know that one out of those 8 modules has a really high conversion rate with customers, and it's a home run sales pitch kind of thing, and so they always lead with that one product when they're selling to a client, and then they'll over time will sell in the rest of their products and kind of scale up the partnership. The other approach is to kind of be more strategic or tactical, I guess, around the sales pitch, to understand who the client is, what their unique problems, and then bundle, change your approach based on, okay, we know these 3 products is what is going to solve this customer's problems, and that changes on a pitch by pitch basis. Which one of those approaches would you say you guys favor, or is it just like one or the other kind of thing, depending on the
Well, no, I think we're pretty clear that we would like to do the latter. So we would like to start with the client problem first and then try to solve it, because our platform is actually, so it's basically one platform. So we don't have like separate modules, but it's one platform that you can then activate on different, you can have ad server, or you can use a DSP, or you can use a DMP, but it's kind of interconnected. So we know that it's basically we sell the whole platform to the client, even though they might be just paying for a piece of the platform. But we want to start with the problem, because otherwise it's a short-term engagement. Because if you don't deliver the value to the client, why would they use us, right? So I think that's the ultimate goal, is actually to start with the problem and then make sure that we solve it. And then what usually the client sees, that if we can solve the problem, they are usually very happy with the engagement. Our customer NPS is usually around anywhere between 30 and 50 across the world, which is super high. So we tend to have really happy clients, and usually they leave us because of a grand strategy shift, right? So we've seen clients that shifted out of the programmatic advertising, display advertising, in favor of social. Now they're coming back, because who would have known that you actually have to have a mix of all activities, right, to be effective? But we're trying to solve the problem client issue first, and then move on.
Bartosz, probably a good segue. Do you want to tell us what Adform does and the problem that you're solving in the market?
Yeah. So Adform is a display advertising platform, and we do have a platform that has one kind of like backbone that shares all the data and IDs, which is quite unique, because I think we are probably the only one that actually has just one login ID and one unique UI for all of that. We enable our clients to track, measure, run, and optimize digital campaigns, either direct or in the programmatic advertising space. And we're doing that in almost all available channels. So that is traditional display via your browser, but it's also in-app, it's also CTV, digital out of home. Actually, fun fact, I was one of the first guys to launch programmatic print back in the days, but that didn't necessarily fly. But you could actually buy and display ad in the middle section of Forbes magazine in Poland through the UI. So we did that as well, and we are trying to do a lot in omnichannel advertising, in gaming. So all of the digital display things, and display, I mean also video as well, and interactive formats, you can do through Adform, and you can track those ads, and you can see how the users interacted with the creative, and then all that data get consolidated under one platform, and you can export the data and use it in your own systems as well. That kind of data ownership and transparency is pretty key for us. And I would say the cherry on the top, which is very important for us, is we built, back in 2000, we started building this solution we call ID Fusion, which basically enables you to identify users in cookieless environments. And that solution, we kind of made a bet that the world will not pick only one ID solution, that we're going to live in a multi-ID world. So it's very flexible, and you can actually connect multiple IDs from different vendors and solutions, so that our ID graph actually can kind of feed from all that data and identify the users. And that enables us, and most important, our clients, to really do like frequency capping on advertising across Firefox, Chrome, Safari. So that already is working and proves to our client that they can either save money on not spending the budget unwisely and missing the frequency cap, or actually going to the incremental user base on those in those environments.
What are your key connectors, or what key data partnerships? Are we talking LiveRamp? Do you go into all of who are you connecting? All of them?
Yeah, we get all the major vendors,
Yep.
with one exception. So the UID 2.0 from Trade Desk,
Yeah.
we are not integrated with them because the adoption that we saw, obviously we see the bid requests coming from the world, and we see that it's still just a fraction. So none of our clients ask us to actually integrate with that.
Yep.
But the larger ones, ID Fusion, ID5, LiveRamp are obviously there. We then also integrate the sort of local players, like country players. We've seen a surge in local IDs being developed by different countries. So examples coming from my region, we saw, I think was it last year, 2 years ago, Czechia built their own ID solution that is now working across all of the big publishers in Czech Republic or Czechia. So they changed the name recently. So
they change it every 10 years. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to be politically correct here, but it's really marvelous that they did that, because now you can access all of the users in the country through that ID. Recently, we integrated something which is called CEID, which has been developed by one of the largest publishers in Central and Eastern Europe, and they're trying to span this ID across all the publishers here as well.
Yep.
And then obviously we have this big partnership with UTIC, which is a telecom ID based partnership that we were, I think, one of the first companies to actually do that. So if there's an ID coming, and Australia decides to build their own ID to span across all the publishers, we would probably be quite happy to integrate it, and probably it wouldn't take us long to do it, because the architecture is there, and it's set up in a way that we can ingest more IDs.
Yeah. Are you comfortable talking about the partnerships that you have here in Australia?
Well, I am. I mean, this is one of the markets that has been quite good for us in the recent years.
Because I've seen some good reviews about Adform, and just obviously really keen to hear about how that's unfolding for you. Obviously, you've got a great team with Sarah as well, and the rest of the team. What's the focus for you at the moment?
Yeah, so this year was quite interesting because we also saw a leadership change in Australia with Amy, moving to a kind of a better role, like a higher role outside of Adform, which obviously I'm a big fan of her, and we're really happy that she got that role at Publift. So we for a moment we were looking for a new leader, and now John Harvey Forhall has joined Adform officially, I think since October. So we were kind of in this period where we didn't have the leader, but I think in general the direction that we're heading, which is working with big publishers in Australia, but then also working with independent agencies and trying to get some traction with global holding groups, is basically where we're trying to get. We're also speaking to the advertisers in Australia. We tend to have a better fitting solution for like industries like insurance, banking, telcos. So those are typical the verticals that they want to work with us because of our data security. Us being a European company, and as you probably know from the media, we are much more centered around privacy and making sure that data don't leak, and we keep our servers in the places where they need to be, instead of exporting all the data back to US. The telcos and banks, they prefer that approach where they kind of know that we are really a safe solution for them, without actually getting and using their own data for our own purposes, which usually is the case for some other vendors. So we are in conversation with some of those clients in Australia as well. We have also some global partnerships that are active in APAC. I mean, I can openly speak that, Lenovo is one of our global partners and we're doing quite well with them. They just renewed the contract. So that keeps our Australian and APAC team quite busy. And I think that the next year is going to be even better for us, even though this year is amazing. So despite losing Amy mid-year, I think we're going to finish the year with a very strong growth in Australia.
That's amazing. With regards to your creative solutions inside the platform as well, we're talking dynamic creative as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you want to take us through that? And,
yes.
Because I think this is one of the great pieces in your platform, just being able to deliver up against the ID graphs or the spine that you've got, and being able to deliver dynamic creative on the back of that.
Yep, and thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, we actually have, I would say, a pretty strong creative suite inside Adform. So starting with something which we call Adform Studio, which is basically a free of charge online platform where you can create banners and upload them directly to Adform. Then we have a layer of actually managing the creatives. And then we have the dynamic creative optimization solution, which enables our client to do two things. One is obviously the dynamic banners where you can mix and match the content of the creative based on different signals coming from the platform, whether that's geo, time. You can actually plug in the weather as well from our existing partners. And then you can obviously also plug in the data from the data management platform. And we've just now, this week, launched a new piece of the platform we call Honest Manager, and that is a part of the DMP functionality that was normally available only for the DMP clients that is now brought into the DSP. So I think it makes even an easier workflow for the clients to activate the data. So you can actually use that data inside the creative and then optimize it depending on different user segments and build that creative dynamically. And then there's another part that actually enables you to test which creatives work better. So obviously you can do A/B testing between the creatives. So there's a lot of features that you can actually use for that. And the clients that use the DCO, they're actually quite happy on how that platform performs in terms of the creative.
Let's have a look at a case study. In your world, you've seen quite a few successful campaigns, obviously, because you're still around. What comes to mind as one of the stronger case studies that you've seen that Adform's been able to deliver on?
Oh, well, that's a tricky question because then you need to know all the case studies that we had. Well, let me think. I mean, we've seen a bit of campaigns that utilized ID Fusion and unlocked quite a bit of reach for the clients. And those case studies, obviously, I don't have them right now in front of me, so I won't be able to quote the numbers. But some of the uplifts we've seen in terms of the campaign efficiency were like north of 25%, which I think is phenomenal for digital campaigns. So that worked pretty well. There are clients that are not only using ID Fusion, but also enabling the dynamic creatives, and that brings also a whole another level of uplift in terms of engagement from the clients and CTRs. I particularly remember one of the campaigns from 3 years ago that I felt that was very innovative, and that was when we run it. I think it was for also one of our global clients for BMW, when we actually advertised on TV, on set-top boxes, where the clients could actually using the remote control, they could sign up for test drives, and that went really well. And for me, that was like a very creative and innovative approach that we did in Turkey. So like, I was like, wow, that's super cool because we did something that normally you don't think of when you're like internet advertising platform. We did that on smart TVs. You could sign up for test drives, and that worked pretty well for us.
Yeah.
So there are many different cases, and I do recommend everyone to go through our website to actually see what we're doing, because there's a lot, and obviously I don't remember all of them, but that particular one I remember was very nice. And there was another one also from automotive industry that I recall from, I think it was Sweden, when one of the one of the companies selling cars, obviously, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention the name, was targeting was targeting particularly Tesla drivers using the, I think it's called Intune app in the car, when you can actually listen to a digital radio in the car, and they would be running ads for their own brand for in those cars, basically.
Right.
So you'll be targeting Tesla drivers, selling them their own cars.
So are
So
you
that was
saying
quite innovative as well.
this is in audio? Am I right? So
In audio,
you're
exactly.
personalizing audio on the stream?
It was kind of programmatic targeting drivers
Yeah,
in audio
that's
in
amazing.
the streams.
I love that. What are some of the trends that you're seeing from your point of view, obviously in Europe, but also emerging here in Australia, probably through APAC?
Very good question. And actually, let me just take a very small step back. I think in terms of the trends, it tends, for me, when I'm looking at APAC, it seems like the wave of trends actually is coming from both ways. So there's certainly a lot of things coming directly from US, and there's some things coming from Europe. So it's a bit different picture in terms of what's trendy over there that is happening in Europe. But throughout the last years, I think there's been a bit of a talk about data privacy and basically how do we create safe environments. Recently, AI has been on the tongues of everyone, and for different reasons. So there's a big ongoing discussion about how the internet is going to look like in a few years. Is it going to be AI generated content showing to AI bots? Like, is there going to be actually alive people showing up and reading the news? And I think that's one of the things. Other key major shift, which is for me personally is a bit worrying, is the open internet publishers losing revenues because of changes in algorithms and specifically how users search the web. So I'm pretty sure you've heard about the zero click search and AI overviews and those mechanisms that are being deployed quite rapidly without probably a proper further heads up um, are um, are creating havoc. Basically all the publishers that I spoke to, big ones, small ones, they see that as a big issue
Yeah.
because there's a lot of content that is being basically sipped away from their websites and then being shown to the client, and they don't have the chance to actually interact with the user, show their ads. They lose the revenues, they lose the contact with the user. So that I would say is also a big trend, and it has become a topic in the recent 6 months on how to retain users, how to retain the business, and be more independent. And independence. I'm pretty sure you've heard me already mentioning it a few times, but I think it also is one of those values that we kind of share in Adform. With like we would like to have an open internet with independent publishers being allowed to publish their own news and articles. And I think in the recent 12 months, we've seen that the world has shifted in a more of a kind of walled garden approach, um, controlled publishing in a way.
Yeah.
Especially now, we've seen this week the recent announcement about the Netflix, Paramount, Warner Brothers acquisition. So it's a very dynamic world, and I'm not sure where the freedom of press will go. And I think that's a concern as well, especially in Europe. I mean, we are, especially across my border, there's a war going on, and it's a war on the ground, but we also see it in the informational space. So
Yeah.
that's become a concern as well.
Yeah.
It definitely feels
Um,
like there's a retraction expansion process happening at the moment. And what I mean by that is, like most things, they're cyclical, where we saw, obviously through all parts of the world, media networks buy up smaller media companies to create the conglomerates that we've got. And we're seeing that same process happening now, obviously, as you just said, with Netflix and Warner Brothers. And I was listening to somebody talk today about cable companies like ISPs are in a prime position with all of the data and infrastructure that they provide to probably become the new technology front runners in somehow steering the way we consume content, whether that's through the way it's delivered through something like Netflix or through online solutions like publishers. But I'm wondering where agentic comes into that as well. Is that something that you're looking into with Adform?
Well, yes. In a way, what we decided to do is not to take a huge leap of faith into AI, because, well, there's a lot of promises on the market, and I think we're all thrilled about generative AI in general, even though AI basically has been around for many years, and any programmatic platform that wants to really kind of operate in a high frequency trading system in digital ads had to have some sort of AI already implemented. It's the Gen AI thing that really makes a splash right now. And I think it's great. I mean, we've all been using probably a lot of those tools already, and we understand the value of them. But we don't necessarily think that doing a big leap into agentic AI and all of a sudden everything is AI is a wise move, because we don't necessarily then have full control of data. And because of the way the AI still hallucinates to this day, I mean, even with the latest models, probably the hallucination rate is maybe down to 5 or 10%. But would you really want to have 5 or 10% hallucinations when you're running a multi-million dollar campaign across the world? There's some benefits, but there's also some real dangers to that. So instead of going full agentic right now, what we're doing, we are releasing inside the platform, we are releasing agents that are, I would say, trained in specific fields. So you would have an agent running your reporting, and that agent will be really good in doing that. We will have agent running and optimizing your media plans, right? So then, you will have a specialized agent that the hallucination rate will be much lower to a general agent. And by doing those specialized agents inside the platform, we are preparing them to the moment where we feel, okay, now it's ready to put an agent of agents, so doing a full agentic on top in the future. But instead of doing like a big leap, we're actually doing, I would say, a very measured steps. I don't want to call it baby steps because we have those agents already, but like a measured steps instead of just going, full on running into the AI. Like, it's very costly, it's risky. And I think it's better to see where that is going. Recently there's been a lot of rumors about AI bubble. So we'd rather make it a controlled, measured approach and making sure that our clients retain full control of the data instead of giving everything away to AI, than going in.
Yeah.
Fully.
And there's like, I don't know, Dave, I think one of these days we're gonna have to have like a whole episode just on AI.
Yeah.
It's the one topic that we've touched on in every single episode so far. But I think we could go on about it for hours. But I think, yeah, I agree with that approach wholeheartedly. I think it's a smart move right now, in terms of investment. Like, there's a lot of talk and a lot of hype and a lot of marketing out there, and some of it's real, a lot of it's not. People saying that by 2030, 90% of jobs are going to be gone. I don't believe that personally. I think that's, just kind of hype and speculation. But the reality is we don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of different to when print kind of was dying, because by the time print was dying, digital was already there. So we knew what the future looked like. We knew what the transition looked like. We don't know what this next phase of the media industry and the media world looks like right now. We can speculate, we can theorize, but we're not going to know until we get there. And that's a pretty common thing, I think, in our industry. But so I think that measured approach is.
Yeah. I think that there's actually, I was listening to a conversation today around, we've obviously got direct sales, programmatic sales, and agentic is going to be the new third channel. Have you heard anything like that coming through?
Yeah, obviously I did. I think a few months ago, I was even surprised to see that inside ChatGPT, I got some ads as well. So yes, I think that's another possibility that is happening. And at some point, it could be AI to AI advertising. And I
I
remember
feel
there
like I
was a
just want to sit back
discussion
and
with
watch
one
it
of
all happen. Just
yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a
And
fun ride.
just make sure that you get some popcorn as well,
Yeah,
because it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be messy for sure. Like
yeah.
I have no doubts about it. But one thing that I remember having a discussion with one of the very known car producers was that inside their obviously very advanced navigation entertainment system, they already have ads when you're driving, and there's gas station, it would pop up and it would show something. And there was a discussion like, can we automate this and like really have this plugged into automated advertising systems,
Yeah.
and then basically the advertising ecosystem is talking to the car, and the car kind of decides which one they want to advertise for some reasons, and then it all becomes very logarithmics. If you want to call AI, yeah, sure, we can call it AI, but it's basically machine driven advertising, and then machine will actually decide to the driver what they want to show. Maybe that's the future, but
Yeah.
ultimately, in all that discussion, I'm sometimes I feel that we kind of lose the most important thing, which is like I think the core of advertising. Why are we doing it?
Mm.
Mm.
Because ultimately, it's not about showing the most ads and the faster the user, but actually showing the most relevant ad to the user.
Mm.
And that's something that I've been preaching. So my two little girls, when I ask them what I do at work, I always try to tell them like, actually we're trying to make sure that we declutter the internet from those nonsense ads, and we want to show the relevant ones. And yeah, no one really likes the ads, but that what keeps on fueling the internet, right? Like
Mm.
that's how it all started. Like otherwise people won't be paying, and we know that people generally don't want to pay subscription fees, and they want to pay for access. So that is the currency of the open internet. So let's make sure that it's clean, right? I think that's
Mm.
my personal view, and I think that's something that Adform shares as well. Is like we don't want to throw million of impressions of irrelevant ads to the users, because they will just get tired. And we've seen that happening. And you guys work for publishers, and you know how it is. Like you are always tempted to just show more ads on the page because that's more revenue. But ultimately, at some point, you see that the users don't see those ads. You
Mm.
have the banner blindness, and they're not interesting. I think we need to get to a point where we really value the user attention and show them the thing that will be interesting. And I'm pretty sure that all of us clicked at some point in an ad that was interesting. Like it's not something that is never happened. It is happening. It just needs to be the right ad.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think this is where the dynamic piece comes in. I'll talk about this a lot, I know, but where we get AI and being able to generate images, like, obviously audio is really easy. Notebook LM as an example, where you can have a podcast and you just upload a couple of links or PDFs or whatever you want in there, and it'll create a podcast if you like, and it's interactive, so you can question, upload a couple of contracts from your legal counsel and ask questions and drill into the details, and it'll have an interactive conversation with you. That concept, I think, when you're coming into, as you're talking about with car radios and ads, having an audio playback that's generated by AI based on the data that you've got from the user. Obviously, you're tracking that person, I'm assuming, as they're driving. So from a geo point, that's really powerful. And I like the story that can be told that's more relevant to the user, rather than just throwing a whole stack of ads to, hope that the spray and pay strategy works. This all of a sudden becomes a really interesting story, complements the content that it's advertising in.
Correct. Correct. And I think that's and the advertising space in general. I think we took a lot of bad turns in the past as an industry. I'm not saying like particular companies, but as an industry, I think there was ups and downs, and we kind of maneuvered through different phases. And I think we're getting to the point where we understand that we need to think about the end user, like the client. And we already saw a couple of things where the AI ads are also working. I would say like they're actually doing the devil's work for advertisers. So I can give you an example of a campaign that just it's a fresh off the press. It was two weeks ago, happening in Poland. There's a producer of water filters that their main theme is like they're very natural. They're trying to show people in nature, and like that's the whole thing. And they did create an ad using AI So it was all AI generated, and people immediately saw it because obviously those tools are not perfect, and you can kind of tell sometimes. And that created a bit of a rage in the user base. Like this is like you're promoting, you know, living in the nature, close to nature, and yet you're using a machine to drive this instead of like real users. And I think that's going to happen as well. And I'm also pretty sure that we, at least in Europe, I'm pretty sure we are going to see legislation happening where like AI generated content will need to be marked, and then you will see it in the banners or in the clips. Like there will be an icon or something that this is an AI generated content, so that people know that this is not real. Because the level of disinformation coming from AI clips across all of the channels, and I'm pretty sure I think I've seen the most on Meta, to be honest, but maybe it's my old age, and I'm more of a Meta
You're
user
so
than
old.
TikTok. Yeah, we're so old. But that's I think it will need to change. It will need to change because and you know, David, we spoke about your mom watching your show. Like, how
Hi,
do
Mum,
you
by the
make
way.
sure that's
Should get a buzz.
hi, Dave's mom. But it's like, how do we make sure that our moms, when they watch a clip that is actually true and they're not get misled? I'm not sure if you're familiar with a company called 11 Labs.
Mm.
They're doing like generative audio based on text, and you can pick voices. Super cool stuff. And I did use it as well while preparing for my presentation. You know, you can kind of write a script and then put it on on audio and kind of listen through yourself speaking about the presentation. And then I had this thought, like, if someone actually recorded my voice of one of those podcasts and made the sample and then trained the AI and then made phony call to my mom asking for money with my voice, like how would she react? Or even
Yeah.
recorded myself on the screen and recorded like a video with WhatsApp call asking for money or access to an internet account. She would fall for it, right? She would
Yeah.
most likely fall for it. And like
This is already
this,
happening.
this
Yeah.
this is already happening. And I think also as an industry we need to make sure that we are aware of this and we don't enable those scammers to do that, because otherwise and it's true for our families, and both the fathers and mothers and also our daughters and sons, where this AI generated content can have really adverse effects,
Yeah.
and it can be very dangerous, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Luckett, I'm going to model you.
What do you mean?
We're going to do an episode one day. We're going to have like our own show done by AI generated show hosts. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
I'm already. This has been going on for probably at least 12 months now. Where like I got family members who will share reels on Instagram with me, and because it's interesting or something, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is AI. I can tell it's AI straight away by looking at it, but they obviously didn't when they sent it to me. That I work in the media industry, right? I work around AI constantly, so I know what to look for, and I think you're right in that it's a little scary at the moment, and I guess to reference what I said earlier about print, like technological advancement, happens at different speeds and different paces, and the internet was around for a long time before print started to kind of die off. So as I said, we already had digital there, we already had some experience in that environment, but right now AI has come along, the advancement of that has come along so quickly within such a short period of time where where it's almost like it's happened too fast, and we're kind of figuring it out. We're literally building the plane as we're flying it. One of my favorite sayings right now in the world, and so it's a scary time. But I think it's also we've talked about this with other guests, David, about like how much opportunity there is out there, and we just have to be careful as we go through and develop this new world of information, because in a way it's kind of like we're in the post-information era now, and that's scary in itself. But
I'm absolutely fascinated with the autonomous Android concept, where we get this hardware that's got AI that's connected to the internet. We've seen massive advances in obviously going into, I don't want to get too far into physics, but quantum computing, just in the ability to control the way atoms behave by supercooling them. And that's been a problem by just simply observing atoms, they behave differently, and it's been a challenge for the scientists that have been developing this tech. But soon we'll have this hardware technology that'll be powered by AI, autonomous units that can roam around. We've seen it in China. They've got the police force, being complemented with these units. $90,000 Elon Musk wants to go out and put these things into market. Anything that can grab, move, and position and let go. I think that's we're seeing that space. But I think in the creative part of what we're doing, it's stimulating imagination, and I definitely think what Adform is doing is providing the foundation for the imagination to be distributed at scale. And you mentioned about the decline of publisher revenue just due to the SEO or the lack of people moving into the publisher space because they're getting AI to answer those questions for them. How is that impacting Adform? You obviously, you positioning yourself for that change?
Yeah, we are. And as I mentioned early on the show, like we're really doing a lot of progress in the omnichannel space.
Yeah.
So kind of making sure that instead, like we have the open internet as one main inventory source, but we are also making quite a bit of progress in terms of integrating with digital out-of-home screens that will be there, and there always will be viewable to the users. We're working with partners such as Spotify, which we recently integrated directly to have programmatic audio available as well. And again, those channels tend to be actually growing rather than shrinking. So we are trying to position ourselves as a kind of tool that enables our clients to really advertise across all the channels. And yes, currently the traditional display advertising tends to be shrinking bit by bit. It's maybe it's not a big revolution in terms of it's collapsing, but we've seen a kind of a steady decline in traditional display. There's been a switch to the video advertising, so we're connecting CTV, as I mentioned as well, and other channels that are quite resilient to that change. How that will unfold, it's yet to be seen. I can imagine both scenarios. One, future being fully AI driven and users not even launching their browsers anymore, just going to ChatGPT or Perplexity or any other of the AI tools, and basically just working through there. And then the question is, how will those platforms open up, if they will or not? We don't know. But there's also always going to be a group of people using traditional browsers, and then still that open will going to work. We see a big emergence of those channels as CTV shut of home across the globe, and we're partnering with some of those top vendors as well to be there. So I think that's where we're kind of trying to position ourselves as the omnichannel players in all of those rising spaces. The big question, and I don't know the answer, is like, what will happen to the big techs and the walled gardens? Like, there's been an ongoing discussion: should Google break up? Should the YouTube be allowed from other external vendors? My personal opinion, yes, it should. It's absolutely a monopolistic position, and had it not been for the closure of YouTube in 2016, was it? I think Trade Desk, ourselves, and some of the rest in peace technologies, as let's say Media Map, for instance, would be in a different spot, because this is a unique positioning for Google, but it's a closed ecosystem. If TikTok opens up for other vendors, that will also change the landscape. So there are a lot of question marks around walled gardens. What will happen? How the world going to evolve? It's a very volatile space. I mean, was it a year ago? Yeah, I think a year ago in January, we were yet to witness the closure of TikTok in US, right? According to President Trump, and that never happened. So who knows? I mean, the world is changing constantly, and I think we are trying to navigate that world, allowing our clients to stay independent and stay true to their values with access to their own data. That's our mantra, and let's see if that assumption is correct. So far, it has been. I mean, we've survived 20 odd years as an ad tech platform from Europe, so I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah.
But who knows what the future holds.
Does that include kind of the retail media space as well? I was looking at the website earlier, and there's a lot of talk around that there. And do you think your experience as an organization over the 20 years in all these different spaces that you've operated in give you an advantage there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a very good point that you raised about retail media. I mean, retail media obviously is a funny thing, very specific to our advertising ecosystem because it doesn't necessarily bring any new capabilities. It's basically, I mean, you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
it's using the data that had already been there with the screens that are already there, and obviously there's an on-site, off-site retail media. So it's nothing necessarily new. Yeah, the UI might change, but it's from technological standpoint, I don't think it's a revolution. And yes, we are doing retail media. We have clients, we have um, uh, uh, some names that are really known in Europe that are working with us on the retail media space. It's definitely a space that is very interesting to watch, but we need to also be aware that majority of that space is also enclosed, right? So there's a lot of Amazon, there's a lot of Walmart in it. In Eastern Europe, there's a company called Allegro that has been actually quite successful in retaining market share and actually not allowing Amazon to enter the market. And they've built their own solution as well. So there's a lot of those big, I think there was a name for them, like private gardens, that are doing retail media already on their own. We are trying to tap into that space as well with some success, and obviously that market also requires a lot of education because the retailers, media tech for retailers is something that they're not used to, and there's a lot of education factor as well coming into those conversations. But that space is also very interesting, and we are doing steps there as well as a company. We're not. I wouldn't call ourselves as a retail media company because we're not. We are kind of adjusting what we have, the stack, to the needs of the retail media clients.
Bartosz, obviously we're coming close to time, and I hate doing this because I love this show's all about the conversation. I really want to go further with you on this. We'll have to bring you back on the show. Your leadership, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is so broad on the area that you're covering, the regions and what you've done. For anyone that wants to be you, right, what would you recommend that they do?
That's a very hard question. So I would say I kind of intentionally always wanted to work in an international environment. So if you want to kind of get that experience, try to really work early on those international projects, get just as much exposure to other markets than yourself. I think it's much easier done in your region because of how kind of intentional as it is. I mean, you need to go to Singapore and then you work with all the Southeast Asian markets. So I would say the exposure to to other markets is quite important early on. And then I think the ability to understand that people really differ and the cultures really differ, and then have appreciation for other cultures as well as understanding is very important. Otherwise, I would not be allowed to work in the Middle East, or I would not be allowed to, we interesting fact, I did have an episode many years ago when it was still allowed of having a 3-day negotiation with a media team from Iran. And that was very interesting as well. There's a lot of smoking shisha and eating Middle Eastern food in that. So that was an experience in itself. But those were the times when there was a bit of a kind of Iran tend to be closing the gap between the West, and
Yeah.
things seemed peaceful at the time. Then it changed, and then we had to kind of cut off the tide there. But when you're open to that kind of diversity, then it helps you a lot. And then the other very important thing is you really need to hire the right people. If you're managing the teams that are sitting, 8,000 miles away, you need to make sure that you can trust those people and they're the right people, because otherwise it will just fall to pieces. If you hire the wrong guy who's sitting a long, time away from you, I mean, the distance and time zone difference is there, then you need to trust him because spotting, and fixing things takes a much longer when you're far away. And then if you have such a large region, it's impossible to be everywhere all the time. So I think really hiring the right talents is very key, and making sure that you're then supporting those teams, because you don't want people leaving you after 6 months because they haven't gotten the right support. So I think that those will be the three key things. So exposure, kind of understanding for diversity, and then making sure you hire the right talents.
I love it. That's just absolutely spot on with every person that we've had on the show so far. So we're obviously talking to the right people, and we've got the right people leading this industry right now. I want to say thank you, Bartosz, for joining us from Adform, Regional President, CEE, MEA, and APAC. Just like an MBA in there somewhere, I'm sure. Thanks for joining us on the show today. We do look forward to seeing you again for another conversation. And for everyone else watching the show or listening to us on the podcast somewhere across the globe, we look forward to seeing and catching up with you next time here on Media Tech Talk. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan Marua, CEO of Admiral, the visitor relationship management company. The rules of the media industry are changing. Platforms control distribution, artificial intelligence is reshaping discovery, and media publishers are being forced to rethink how they build sustainable revenue. In this episode, we explore what this shift means for publishers and why the ones who thrive will be those who understand their visitors, build stronger relationships, and create clear value exchanges. So here's the question. What happens when publishers stop chasing scale and start building relationships? Join us for the conversation that's inspiring media minds. That's next on Media Tech Talk.